How did one phone call destroy everything I thought I knew about my life? Listen carefully, the voice whispered through my phone at 3:17 a.m. I'm Danny, your cousin. They're going to kill you next week. I bolted upright in bed, my heart slamming against my ribs. The caller ID showed blocked, but I recognized that voice despite the terror warping it. Danny Hoffman had been missing for 8 months. The life insurance policy is already signed, she continued, words tumbling out in desperate haste. Your death certificate is printed and dated for next Friday. Trust no one in the family.
Danny, where are you? Everyone thinks you're dead or had another breakdown. My voice cracked as I fumbled for the bedside lamp, casting harsh shadows across my childhood bedroom.
I ran before they could finish the job. Listen to me, Rebecca. Remember how Cousin Jeremy died in that car accident? Uncle David's heart attack at 34? Aunt Susan's fall down the stairs? Those were tragedies. Accidents. But even as I said it, something cold crawled up my spine. The family had always talked about our bad luck with early deaths, our genetic predisposition to heart problems. Murder. All of it. They kill family members who ask too many questions, then collect the insurance money. You've been asking about the family tree for your genealogy project. They see you as a threat. The phone line crackled with static. Danny's breathing was ragged, panicked. I have to go. They're tracking calls. Meet me tomorrow at the old Miller farm on Route 15. Come alone. And Rebecca, check your parents' office tonight. Look for insurance documents with your name. The call ended, leaving me staring at the phone in the darkness. Every shadow in my bedroom suddenly felt menacing. The family photos on my dresser seemed to mock me with their smiling faces, birthday parties and Christmas mornings now tainted with suspicion. Danny had always been the family conspiracy theorist, the one who saw patterns where others saw coincidence. She'd spent years researching genealogy websites, creating elaborate family trees, asking uncomfortable questions at reunions. Everyone dismissed her as mentally unstable after her breakdown 5 years ago, but her voice tonight held a clarity I'd never heard before, stripped of her usual manic energy. The terror was real. The specific details about insurance policies and death certificates were too precise to be delusions. I crept downstairs to my parents' home office where Dad kept his insurance business files. The house felt different in the pre-dawn silence. Familiar furniture transformed into lurking shapes. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps following me through the darkness. The filing cabinet was locked, but I knew Dad kept the key taped under his desk drawer. My hands shook as I rifled through manila folders marked with family names. Thompson, Hoffman, Garrett, Williams, Davidson. Each folder was thick with documents spanning decades. My breath caught when I found the folder marked Rebecca Thompson. Inside was a life insurance policy for $500,000, signed 2 weeks ago with my forged signature. The handwriting was close, but not perfect. Slightly too neat for my usual scrawl. Beneath it lay a death certificate from Riverside County Coroner's Office, listing my cause of death as accidental drowning, dated for this coming Friday, October 13th. The location was listed as Pine Lake, where our family held annual fishing trips. The signature at the bottom belonged to Dr. Francis Delacroix, our family physician for 30 years. The man who'd treated my childhood ear infections, who'd given me lollipops after shots, who'd been at every family gathering since I could remember. His familiar scrawl now looked sinister in the lamplight. I photographed everything with my phone, hands trembling so violently I had to retake several shots. The flash seemed too bright, too dangerous. If someone came downstairs, how would I explain what I was doing in Dad's locked filing cabinet at 4 a.m.? Then I noticed another folder labeled Completed Claims. Inside were dozens of death certificates and insurance payouts spanning 40 years. Every family member who'd died young, who'd asked uncomfortable questions, who'd threatened the family's carefully maintained secrets. Cousin Jeremy, 23, who'd been researching our grandfather's military service after finding discrepancies in family stories. Listed cause of death, single car accident on Route 9. Insurance payout, $300,000 to his parents, my Uncle Ray and Aunt Caroline. The accident report was signed by Sheriff William Thompson, my father's brother. Uncle David, 34, who'd been an accountant and noticed irregularities in the family construction business books. He'd been asking questions about cash payments and missing invoices. Listed cause of death, massive heart attack. $400,000 to his wife, my Aunt Martha. The death certificate was signed by Dr. Delacroix. Aunt Susan, 41, who'd been asking why so many family members died young and started researching genetic heart conditions. Listed cause of death, accidental fall downstairs at home. Insurance payout, $350,000 to her husband, my Uncle Ray. The coroner's report was signed by Deputy Coroner James Mitchell, who'd married into the family 5 years earlier. The pattern was undeniable. Every suspicious death involved family members in positions of authority. The sheriff's department, the coroner's office, the medical examiner, even the insurance company where Dad worked as a senior claims investigator. They'd built an entire network to facilitate and cover up murder. I found folders for people I'd forgotten about, distant relatives who'd died when I was young, Cousin Michael, who'd been researching property deeds and mineral rights, Great Aunt Helen, who'd been writing a family history book, Second Cousin Patricia, who'd been asking about missing inheritance money from great-grandfather's will. Each folder contained the same elements. Life insurance policy taken out months before death, death certificate signed by a compromised official, insurance payout to the same 3 people, Uncle Ray, Aunt Caroline, and my father Robert. Always the same beneficiaries, always the same signatures. I heard a car door slam outside. Through the office window, I watched Dad's pickup truck pull into the driveway, headlights cutting through the October darkness. He was supposed to be at the insurance conference in Springfield until Friday morning. Panic flooded my system as I shoved the files back into place, trying to remember their exact order. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely fit the key back under the drawer. The filing cabinet lock clicked just as I heard Dad's footsteps on the front porch. I killed the office light and crept toward the stairs, trying to move silently across the hardwood floors. Every step seemed to echo through the house. Behind me, I heard Dad's key in the front door lock. "Rebecca? You awake, sweetheart?" Dad's voice drifted up from the kitchen. Casual, normal, the same tone he'd used when asking about my day, helping with homework, teaching me to drive. Now every memory felt poisoned, every kindness recontextualized as manipulation. "Just getting water," I called back, forcing my voice to sound sleepy and innocent. "Couldn't sleep. Bad dreams."
"Late night snack run," he replied, and I heard the rustle of paper bags. "Grabbed some of those chocolate chip cookies you like from the 24-hour place on 5th Street.
I made it to my room and closed the door softly, heart hammering against my ribs. Dad bringing home cookies at 4 a.m. wasn't unusual. He often had trouble sleeping and would drive around town, stopping at the all-night diner or gas station. But now I wondered if those late-night drives had darker purposes. Were those trips to meet with other conspirators? To plan the next murder? To dispose of evidence? Every innocent memory was now suspect, viewed through the lens of Danny's terrifying revelation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "They know about the call. Leave. Now. Take Route 7 to avoid the main roads." The message sent ice through my veins. Someone was watching me, protecting me, guiding me away from danger. But who? How many people knew about the family's dark secret? How extensive was this conspiracy? I grabbed my car keys, wallet, and phone, then stuffed some clothes into a backpack. The insurance documents were still on my phone, but I needed physical evidence. I slipped back downstairs and made copies of the most damning files using Dad's office printer, the machine seeming impossibly loud in the silence. The sound of Dad moving around in the kitchen made me freeze. I could hear him opening cabinets, running water, the normal sounds of a midnight snack. But now everything felt staged, performed for my benefit while he planned my murder. I slipped out through my bedroom window onto the roof of the back porch, a route I'd used countless times in high school to sneak out for parties and dates, never imagining I'd be fleeing for my life from the people who'd raised me with such apparent love and care. The October air cut through my pajamas as I dropped into the backyard and crept toward my car parked on the street. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every sound magnified in the pre-dawn stillness. A cat yowled somewhere, and I nearly screamed. My 2018 Subaru started quietly, and I drove through our neighborhood with the headlights off until I reached the main road. In the rearview mirror, I watched the lights in my childhood home, wondering if I'd ever see it again without thinking of death certificates and forged signatures. Route 7 wound through farmland and forest, avoiding the interstate where I might be spotted. The road was empty except for an occasional truck, their headlights briefly illuminating my car as we passed. Each one made me wonder if it carried enemies or allies. The old Miller farm sat 15 miles outside town, abandoned since the family moved to Florida 3 years ago. I parked behind the collapsed barn and waited in the darkness, my phone's flashlight my only companion. Every rustle of leaves, every settling of old wood made me flinch. The property had been for sale since the Millers left, but no one wanted to buy a farm with contaminated wells and a house that needed complete renovation. Now I understood why it made the perfect meeting place. Isolated, forgotten, invisible to casual observers. Danny emerged from the farmhouse ruins just after sunrise, moving like a hunted animal. 8 months of hiding had transformed my bubbly, impulsive cousin into something feral and sharp-eyed. She'd lost 30 pounds, her blonde hair now brown and chopped short, her clothes hanging loose on her diminished frame. "You came," she whispered, scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. Her eyes never stopped moving, cataloging every sound and shadow. "I wasn't sure you'd believe me. Everyone thinks I'm crazy." "I found the files," I said, showing her the photos on my phone. "Death certificates for everyone who died young, all signed by family members in official positions. The insurance payouts all go to the same 3 people. Danny nodded grimly, her face etched with lines that hadn't been there a year ago. "I've been documenting this for 2 years. Started when I noticed the insurance payouts always went to Uncle Ray, Aunt Caroline, and your dad Robert. They're the ones running it." She pulled a battered laptop from her backpack, powered by a portable battery pack wrapped in duct tape. The screen showed a detailed family tree with death dates, insurance amounts, and cause listings. Red lines connected the victims to their killers, revealing a web of systematic murder spanning 4 decades. "It started with your grandfather, Richard Thompson, back in 1985, Danny explained, her fingers flying over the keyboard to access encrypted files. "He was an insurance investigator who figured out how to game the system. Life insurance policies on family members, then arranging accidents. The payouts funded a network of corrupt officials. The family tree on her screen was horrifying in its thoroughness. Names I recognized from childhood stories, relatives who'd died before I was born, distant cousins who'd disappeared from family gatherings, each connected to insurance payouts, suspicious circumstances, convenient deaths. But these are our relatives, people who loved us, raised us, came to birthday parties and Christmas dinners." My voice sounded hollow even to myself. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. "That's what makes it work perfectly," Danny said, her voice bitter with hard-won knowledge. "Who suspects loving family members? They target people who get too curious, ask too many questions, threaten to expose the truth, like Uncle Paul when he started auditing the family business books." She opened another file showing financial records stolen from various sources. Bank statements, insurance claims, property transfers, all painting a picture of systematic theft disguised as family tragedy. They killed 17 people over 40 years, made it look like accidents, heart attacks, suicides. Each death funded the next phase of the operation. "Why didn't you go to the FBI?" State police? Someone outside the county? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. I tried. Filed a report with Agent Nelson at the Springfield field office 6 months ago. 2 days later, he called my parents and suggested I needed psychiatric evaluation for paranoid delusions. Uncle Ray has connections everywhere. The corruption goes deeper than just our county. Danny showed me newspaper clippings about Agent Nelson's recent promotion, his appearance at Uncle Ray's political fundraising dinners, his membership in the same country club where family business was conducted. The tentacles of corruption reached far beyond our small town. Last spring, I got too close, Danny continued, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. Found the master file with all the death certificates and insurance policies hidden in Uncle Ray's basement office. He and Aunt Caroline figured out I'd been snooping around. The family dinner where you disappeared, I said, pieces clicking into place. Everyone had been so worried when Danny didn't show up for Sunday dinner at Uncle Ray's house. The search parties, the missing person reports, the assumption she'd had another mental breakdown. I saw Uncle Ray putting something in my wine glass when he thought I wasn't looking. Crushed pills from a prescription bottle. I ran to the bathroom and climbed out the window, left my purse and car keys behind to make it look like I'd vanished. She'd been living rough ever since, staying in abandoned buildings, sleeping in her car when she had one, working odd jobs for cash. The fear had aged her a decade and 8 months, but it had also sharpened her survival instincts. Danny showed me surveillance photos she'd taken of family members meeting with sheriff's deputies, coroner staff, and insurance executives. Uncle Ray shaking hands with Sheriff William Thompson outside the courthouse, Aunt Caroline having lunch with Dr. Delacroix at the country club, Dad sharing drinks with Deputy Coroner James Mitchell at the Elks Lodge. Your genealogy research triggered them, she said, pointing to a timeline on her laptop screen. You were asking about military records, death dates, family connections. Same pattern as Uncle Paul and Cousin Jeremy before they died. You became a target the moment you started digging into the family history. My phone buzzed with a call from Dad. I declined it, but immediately received a text. Rebecca, where are you? Your car's gone and your bed hasn't been slept in. We're worried sick. Please call. They know you're gone, Danny said, reading over my shoulder. We need to move. I have a contact in the FBI who might listen, but we need proof they can't dismiss or bury. Evidence that even Uncle Ray's connections can't make disappear. We spent the next 2 hours copying files from Danny's laptop to a secure cloud drive. Insurance documents, death certificates, financial records showing money trails between the murders and the corrupt officials who covered them up. The scope was staggering. A multi-generational criminal enterprise disguised as family tragedy. Agent Patricia Wells in Chicago, Danny said, giving me a business card worn soft from handling. She's clean. I've been vetting her for months, checking her background, her cases, her connections. She specializes in public corruption cases and has no ties to anyone in our county or state. My phone rang again. This time it was Mom, her voice breaking with what sounded like genuine concern. Sweetie, please call us back. We found your window open and some of your clothes missing. Are you hurt? Are you in trouble? Just let us know you're safe. The concern in her voice made my chest tighten with grief and confusion. These were the people who'd raised me, celebrated my achievements, comforted me through heartbreaks and disappointments. The cognitive dissonance of learning they were killers felt like my brain was splitting apart. Don't answer, Danny warned, watching me waver. They're probably tracking your phone already. Uncle Ray has equipment from his sheriff connections. We need to get to Chicago and contact Agent Wells before they can intercept us. A black SUV crested the hill leading to the Miller farm, moving slowly along the access road like a predator stalking prey. Danny grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the collapsed silo behind the barn, its concrete walls offering the only real cover on the exposed property. We crouched in the ruins, watching through gaps in the concrete as 3 men exited the vehicle and spread out to search the property. They moved with military precision, communicating through hand signals, checking sight lines and escape routes. I recognized Uncle Ray's voice calling our names, the tone carefully modulated to sound concerned rather than threatening. Girls, we know you're here. Danny's car was spotted on Route 7 last night. Let's talk this through like family. Nobody needs to get hurt. The casual reference to car spotting revealed another layer of the conspiracy. How many people were watching for us? How extensive was their surveillance network? The family had always seemed well-connected in local business and politics, but this suggested something far more sinister. Danny pressed a thumb drive into my palm, her fingers ice-cold with fear. Everything's on there, she whispered, her breath barely audible. If something happens to me, get it to Agent Wells. Promise me you won't let them win. Nothing's going to happen, I whispered back, but the words felt hollow. The men searching for us moved with the confidence of people who'd done this before, who knew how to make problems disappear permanently. Uncle Ray was getting closer, his footsteps crunching through dead leaves and debris. Rebecca, your parents are worried sick about you. This isn't like you to run off without explanation. Come home and we'll sort this out like adults. The reasonable tone, the appeal to family loyalty, the suggestion that I was being childish, all classic manipulation techniques. But underneath the false concern, I could hear something else. A hardness that had always been there, camouflaged by warmth and familiarity. Danny motioned toward a gap in the silo wall that led to an old drainage tunnel, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. We entered on hands and knees, concrete scraping against our backs, the darkness ahead total and terrifying. The tunnel emerged 50 yards away near a creek bed, hidden by overgrown brush and fallen trees. We could hear the searchers behind us, their voices growing more urgent as they realized we'd escaped the immediate area. My car was parked behind the barn, visible from the main search area. But Danny led me in the opposite direction, toward an old pickup truck hidden in a grove of pine trees. The vehicle was ancient but well-maintained, with fake license plates and a full gas tank. Backup transportation, she explained as we climbed in. I've been preparing for this moment for months. Multiple vehicles, safe houses, emergency funds. You can't fight a conspiracy this big without thinking like them. We drove toward Chicago using back roads and county highways, avoiding major interstates where license plate readers and traffic cameras might track our movements. Danny navigated with paper maps, her phone powered off and battery removed. The landscape rolled past in autumn splendor, golden fields and red maples mocking the horror of our situation. Normal people were starting their Friday morning routines, unaware that we were fleeing for our lives from a family murder conspiracy. They killed my parents when I was 12, Danny said suddenly, breaking an hour of tense silence. Car accident on Route 9, single vehicle rollover. I always wondered why Dad lost control on a straight road in good weather. Now I know. Your parents questioned something, I said, understanding flooding through me like ice water. Dad was asking about discrepancies in Grandpa Richard's will, questioning why certain properties had been transferred before his death. Mom started researching family deaths for what she thought was a medical genealogy project, looking for genetic patterns in our early mortality rate. The weight of revelation pressed down on me like a physical force. Not only were my relatives killers, but they'd been murdering family members since before I was born. The sweet, loving family gatherings of my childhood had been meetings of criminals planning their next victim. Uncle Ray and Aunt Caroline became my guardians after the accident, Danny continued, her voice flat with suppressed emotion. They seemed so caring, so concerned about my welfare. Now I realized they were positioning themselves to monitor and control me. Every interaction, every kindness, every moment of apparent love had been calculated manipulation. The people who'd raised us weren't family. They were predators who'd infiltrated our bloodline and turned it into a hunting ground. We reached Chicago by early afternoon, the skyline rising like a promise of safety and justice. Danny had chosen a coffee shop in Federal Plaza, surrounded by government buildings and law enforcement offices. If Uncle Ray's people tried anything here, they'd be operating in hostile territory. Agent Patricia Wells was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and prematurely gray hair that spoke of too many difficult cases. She wore a conservative suit and minimal jewelry, projecting competence rather than warmth. These are serious allegations, Agent Wells said after reviewing our evidence on Danny's laptop. If true, we're looking at multiple counts of murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud, and public corruption spanning 4 decades. But I need more than documents and photos. What about the insurance policies and death certificates? I asked, feeling my hope deflate. Danny has copies of everything. Financial records, surveillance photos of meetings between conspirators. Good start, but defense attorneys will claim they're fabricated or taken out of context. Digital evidence can be manipulated. Photos can be staged. I need witnesses, phone records, financial trails that can be independently verified through official channels. Agent Wells explained that building a federal case against such a widespread conspiracy would require months of investigation, possibly years. Multiple agencies would need to be involved: FBI, IRS, postal inspectors, state police from several jurisdictions. There's another complication, she continued, pulling up files on her tablet. Several of these officials have federal connections. Sheriff Thompson sits on the State Law Enforcement Council. Dr. Delacroix has contracts with federal detention centers. Deputy Coroner Mitchell's wife works for the Department of Veterans Affairs. The scope kept expanding like ripples in a pond. What started as family murders for insurance money had metastasized into a network that reached state and federal levels. No wonder Danny's previous attempts to report the crimes had been dismissed or buried. We need to get you both into protective custody immediately, Agent Wells said, already reaching for her phone. If this conspiracy is as extensive as you believe, you're in immediate danger. They won't hesitate to kill to protect their operation. The safe house was a nondescript ranch home in suburban Evanston, surrounded by other middle-class homes that provided camouflage. From the outside, it looked normal, but reinforced doors and bullet-resistant windows revealed its true purpose. U.S. Marshal Diana Foster briefed us on security protocols, while Agent Wells coordinated with Chicago field office investigators. No phone calls, no internet access, no contact with anyone from our previous lives. We were ghosts now, temporarily erased from existence. My parents called constantly over the next week, their messages growing more desperate and angry with each passing day. Mom's voice broke as she begged me to come home, to explain what was wrong, to trust them with whatever was troubling me. Sweetheart, please, we love you so much. Whatever Danny told you, whatever you think you've discovered, we can work through it together. Family solves problems together. Family protects each other. The manipulation was skillful, appealing to love and loyalty while subtly suggesting that Danny was the problem, the source of corruption in our perfect family dynamic. But I could hear something else underneath, a growing desperation that spoke to larger concerns. Dad's messages were different, starting worried but quickly shifting to barely contained anger. Rebecca, you're destroying this family with these ridiculous accusations. You're hurting people who love you based on the paranoid delusions of someone who needs psychiatric help. By the 4th day, his tone had shifted to barely veiled threats. Come home now and we'll forget this ever happened. But if you keep spreading lies about people who've sacrificed everything for you, there will be consequences. You're forcing us to protect ourselves. The threat was clear despite the careful wording. Agent Wells had the calls recorded and analyzed by behavioral specialists who confirmed what I already knew. These weren't the words of worried parents. They were the threats of cornered criminals. The FBI investigation moved with surprising speed once Agent Wells secured federal warrants. Dawn raids on the sheriff's department, coroner's office, and Dr. Delacroix's practice yielded boxes of evidence that had been carefully hidden for decades. They found the master insurance files in a safe deposit box registered to a shell company controlled by Uncle Ray. Original applications showing forged signatures, policies taken out on people who had no idea they were insured, beneficiary forms that had been altered after signing. Bank records revealed a complex money laundering operation funneling insurance payouts through multiple accounts and shell companies. The dirty money had funded real estate investments, business acquisitions, and political contributions that bought protection at every level. The breakthrough came when they arrested Deputy Coroner James Mitchell at his home, finding him shredding documents in his basement office. Facing life in prison and the loss of his federal employee pension, he quickly agreed to cooperate with investigators. Your Uncle Ray was the architect, Agent Wells explained during one of our briefings at the safe house. He identified targets, planned methods, and coordinated timing. Your father, Robert, handled the insurance aspects, making sure policies were in place and claims were processed without scrutiny.
What about Aunt Caroline? I asked, still struggling to reconcile the woman who'd baked cookies for my birthday with the killer she'd apparently been.
She managed the officials, maintained relationships with corrupt cops, coroners, doctors, insurance investigators. She was the social networker who made sure everyone stayed loyal and quiet. Her bridge club was actually a regular meeting of co-conspirators. The scope of corruption was staggering. 23 people directly involved in the conspiracy, with dozens more who'd been compromised or bought off. The network included police officers, medical examiners, insurance adjusters, court clerks, and even a state legislator who'd helped write laws that made insurance fraud investigations more difficult.
How many people did they actually kill? I asked, dreading the answer.
Still counting. We've identified 19 confirmed victims going back to 1985, but there may be more. Some deaths were classified as natural causes and cremated immediately, destroying physical evidence. The full scope may never be known. 19 people. 19 family members who'd died because they'd asked questions, posed threats, or simply been inconvenient to the operation. Children who'd never grown up, parents who'd never seen their kids graduate, spouses who'd died thinking they were loved. The arrests began 3 weeks after our meeting in Chicago. Uncle Ray was taken at his insurance office while meeting with potential new victims, Aunt Caroline at her bridge club while coordinating alibis for an upcoming murder, Dad at the family business while reviewing financial records. I watched the local news coverage from the safe house, feeling no satisfaction as the people who'd raised me were led away in handcuffs. The betrayal cut too deep for simple revenge. These were the hands that had bandaged my scraped knees, the voices that had read bedtime stories. Thompson family death ring exposed, read the headlines as federal agents perp-walked respected community members past news cameras. The media coverage was massive, with reporters descending on our small town like locusts, interviewing anyone who'd known the family. Former neighbors expressed shock and disbelief. They seemed like such a loving family, said Mrs. Patterson from across the street. Always helping with community events, active in church, raised such polite children. I can't believe they could do something like this. Mom's arrest was the hardest to watch. She'd always seemed like a victim of Dad's controlling nature, quietly supporting his decisions while focusing on domestic concerns. But Agent Wells showed me evidence that she'd been an active participant from the beginning. Your mother specialized in emotional manipulation and victim management, Agent Wells explained, showing me recordings of Mom comforting families after murders. She'd deliver casseroles to grieving relatives, help with funeral arrangements, even personally delivered some of the insurance payouts. Classic predator behavior. The recordings were devastating. Mom's voice, warm and caring, offering support to families whose loved ones she'd helped murder. She'd insert herself into their grief, becoming a trusted confidant who could monitor their emotional state and report any suspicions back to the conspiracy. She was particularly effective with children, Agent Wells continued. Kids who'd lost parents trusted her implicitly. She'd gather information about their questions, their concerns, their developing suspicions. Several teenage victims were identified and eliminated based on intelligence she provided. The woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me to bake cookies and helped with school projects, had been systematically manipulating traumatized children to identify which ones needed to be killed. The scope of her evil was beyond my comprehension. The media dubbed it the Thompson family death ring, and news crews camped outside my childhood home for weeks. Reporters interviewed former teachers, coaches, and family friends, all expressing shock that such a wholesome family could hide such darkness. Investigation revealed that the conspiracy had its own internal justice system. Family members who showed reluctance or threatened to expose the operation were eliminated just like outsiders. 3 people identified as co-conspirators had themselves become victims when their loyalty became questionable. Cousin Brian, who'd helped with 2 murders in the 1990s, had died of an apparent drug overdose in 2003 after expressing guilt about the killings. Uncle Larry, who'd provided alibis for several murders, had died in a hunting accident in 2008 after threatening to confess to police about his involvement. Even family members were expendable if they became liabilities. The operation consumed its own with the same cold calculation it applied to outside victims. No one was safe from the machine Uncle Ray had created. The trial lasted 8 months, with testimony from 127 witnesses and over 2,000 pieces of evidence. I testified for 3 days, describing my childhood in a family of killers, the genealogy research that marked me for death, and the night I fled through my bedroom window. Danny's testimony was even more devastating, detailing years of systematic murder disguised as family tragedies. She'd memorized details about each victim, their final days, their last conversations, the methods used to kill them. Her obsessive research had created an unshakable record of the conspiracy's crimes. Defense attorneys tried to paint us as unstable conspiracists seeking attention and book deals. They claimed the evidence was circumstantial, that the witnesses were unreliable, and that the FBI had manufactured a case against pillars of the community to justify their budget. These are respected citizens who dedicated their lives to public service, argued Uncle Ray's attorney during closing statements. Sheriff Thompson has served this community for 30 years. Dr. Delacroix has delivered half the babies in this county. These are not the actions of killers. But the financial evidence was overwhelming. Insurance payouts totaling $8.3 million over 40 years, all flowing to the same 3 family members. Death certificates signed by compromised officials. Bank records showing payments to corrupt cops and coroners. Phone records coordinating alibis and cover stories. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. This wasn't a family. It was a criminal enterprise that used blood relationships to identify and eliminate threats. They turned love into a weapon, trust into a tool of murder. They perverted the most fundamental human bonds to serve their greed. The jury deliberated for 2 days before returning guilty verdicts on all major charges. Uncle Ray got life without parole. Dad got life with possibility of parole after 30 years. Aunt Caroline got 25 to life for her role as the conspiracy's coordinator and emotional manipulator. 12 other conspirators received sentences ranging from 10 to 25 years. Sheriff William Thompson got 20 years for abuse of office and multiple counts of accessory to murder. Dr. Delacroix got 15 years for falsifying death certificates and covering up homicides. Mom pled guilty to conspiracy and testified against the others in exchange for a 15-year sentence. Her testimony revealed the full scope of the operation, including murders Danny and I hadn't known about, extended family members, business partners, even a family friend who'd asked too many questions. There were rules, Mom testified, her voice barely audible in the packed courtroom. No killing children under 16. No targeting more than 2 people in the same year. No using the same method twice in a row. Ray was very careful about patterns. The clinical detachment in her voice was more chilling than any emotional breakdown would have been. She described decades of systematic murder with the same tone she'd used to discuss grocery lists or weekend plans. The day the verdicts were read, I felt nothing but exhaustion. Justice had been served, but at the cost of everything I'd believed about my life, my family, and my place in the world. The people who'd shaped my identity were monsters, and I had to rebuild myself from scratch. Outside the courthouse, victims' families gathered to speak with reporters. Some expressed satisfaction with the sentences. Others felt that no punishment could restore what had been stolen from them. All were united in their grief for loved ones who'd died for insurance money. Danny and I entered the Witness Protection Program after receiving credible death threats from associates of the convicted killers. The conspiracy had extended beyond family members to include business partners and criminal associates who blamed us for destroying their operation. New names, new locations, new histories carefully constructed by federal marshals to hide our real identities. I became Sarah Mitchell, a recent college graduate starting a career in social work. Danny became Lisa Peterson, a freelance graphic designer with no family connections. The FBI relocated us to different cities, cutting the last tie to our shared trauma. We were forbidden from contacting each other directly, though messages could be passed through our handlers in emergencies. The isolation was necessary for security, but devastating for emotional healing. 5 years later, I work as a victim advocate in Portland, helping people navigate the legal system after experiencing crimes. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm helping others find justice after my own family destroyed so many lives. But the work gives meaning to the years of therapy. I think about the victims sometimes, especially late at night when sleep won't come. 17 confirmed dead, possibly more whose murders were never discovered. Uncle Paul never got to see his daughter graduate high school. Cousin Jeremy never got to marry his college girlfriend. Aunt Susan never got to meet her grandchildren. Their deaths funded fancy cars, nice houses, and college educations for the killer's children, including mine. The scholarship money that paid for my degree came from insurance payouts on murdered relatives. Every milestone of my childhood was subsidized by blood money stolen from the dead. Danny calls every few months from her new life in Seattle, our conversations carefully monitored by federal agents. We never discuss the past directly, but the weight of shared experience hangs over every interaction. We're the only survivors of something that shouldn't exist. The one phone call that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life also saved it. Without Danny's warning, I would have joined the family death toll on that October night. Just another tragic accident in a long line of convenient tragedies that funded a murder empire built on love, trust, and the sacred bonds of family.